For many of us in the West, poverty is almost synonymous with hunger. Other than major natural catastrophes such as the Boxing Day tsunami in 2004 or the Haiti earthquake in 2010, no single event affecting the world's poor have captured the public imagination and prompted collective generosity as much as the Ethiopian famine of the early 1980s and the resulting We Are the World concert in March 1985. More recently, the announcement by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) in June 2009 that more than 1 billion people are suffering from hunger grabbed the headlines in a way that the World Bank's estimates of the number of people living under $1 a day never did. This association of poverty and hunger is institutionalized in the UN's first Millennium Development Goal (MDG), which is to reduce poverty and hunger. Indeed, poverty lines in many countries were originally set to capture the notion of poverty based on hunger. The budget needed to buy a certain number of calories, plus some other indispensable purchases, such as housing, a poor person was essentially defined as someone without enough to care. It is no surprise, therefore, that a large part of governments the effort to help the poor is posited on the idea that the poor desperately need food, and that quantity is what matters. Food subsidies are ubiquitous in the Middle East. Egypt spent $3.8 billion in food subsidies in 2008 to 2009. 2% of the GDP. Indonesia has the Raction program, which distributes subsidized rice. Many states in India has a similar program. In Orissa, for example, the poor are entitled to 55 pounds of rice a month at about 4 rupees per pound, less than 20% of them are. Recent hike in fertilizer and fuel prices has forced farmers to economize. According to Pak Solhan, the local farmers decided not to cut wages but to stop hiring workers. Instead, Pak Solhan became unemployed most of the time. In the 2 months before we met him in 2008, he had not found a single day of agricultural labor. Younger people in this situation could normally find work as construction workers. But, as he explained, he was too weak for the most physical work, too inexperienced for more skilled labor, and at 40, too old to be an apprentice. No one would hire him. As a result, Pak Solhan's family, his wife, and their 3 children were forced to take some drastic steps to survive. His wife left for Jakarta, approximately S0 ES away, where, through a friend, she found a job as a but she did not earn enough to feed the children. Any oldest son, a good student, dropped out of school. Miles away, a construction 12 and started as an apprentice on their grandparents. Pak Solhan himself survived on Aban 9 pounds of subsidized rice he got every week from the government and on fish that he caught from the edge of a lake. He could not swim. His brother fed him once in Wolo. In the week before we last spoke with him, he had 2 meals a day for 4 days, and just one for the other 3. Sight. The 2 younger children were sent to live with. Pak Solhan appeared to be out of options, and attributed this problem to food, or, more precisely, the lack of it. It was his opinion that the landowning peasants had decided to fire their workers instead of cutting wages, because they thought that with the recent rapid increases in food prices, a cut in wages would push workers into starvation, which would make them useless in the field. This is how Pak Solhan explained to himself the fact that he was unemployed, although he was willing to work. Lack of food made him weak and listless, and depression. Saps will do something to solve his problem. The idea of a nutrition-based poverty trap, which Pak Solhan explained to us, is very old. Its first formal statement in Economic States from 1958 was, "The idea is simple. The human body has adversities just to survive. So when someone very poor, all the food he or she can afford is barely certain is
to and perhaps earning the meager income that the individual originally used to buy that food. This is the situation Pak Solhan saw himself when we met him. The food he got was barely enough for him to have the strength to catch some fish from the bank. As people get richer, they can buy more food. Once the basic metabolic needs of the body is taken care of, all that extra food goes into building strength, allowing people to produce much more than they need to eat merely to stay alive. This simple biological mechanism creates an S-shaped relationship between income today and income tomorrow. Very much as in figure 1 in the previous chapter, the very poor earn less than they need to be able to do significant work, but those who have enough to eat can do serious agricultural work. This creates the poverty trap. The poor get poorer, and the rich get richer and eat even better and get stronger and even richer, and the gap keeps increasing. Although Pak Solhan's logical explanation of how someone might get trapped in starvation was impeccable, there was something vaguely troubling about his narrative. We met him not in war-infested Sudan or a wooded area of Bangladesh, but in a village in prosperous Java where, even after the increase in food prices in 2007 to 2008, the plenty of food available and a basic meal did not cost much. He was not eating enough when we had him, but he was eating enough to survive. Why would not pay someone to offer him the extra bit of nutrition? Tea would make him productive in return for a full day's work. More generally, although a hunger-based poverty trap is certainly a logical possibility, how relevant is it in practice for most poor people today?